14th April 1945. North Sea, approximately 8 miles off Peterhead, Scotland. 1400 hours. U-1206, a Type 7C submarine. Displacement 769 tons submerged. Cruises at depth of approximately 60 meters. The patrol is routine. The crew is experienced. The boat is new. Commissioned just 3 months earlier in March 1945. Kapitänleutnant Karl Adolf Schlitt, commanding. Needs to use the toilet? This is a simple requirement. But on a German Type 7C submarine, using the toilet is not simple. The system is complex, requires specific procedures, and mistakes have consequences. Schlitt is the captain. He should know the procedures. He does not know them well enough. At 1410 hours, Schlitt attempts to flush the toilet. The system does not respond as expected. Something is wrong. He calls for assistance. The toilet specialist, the crew member trained to operate the system, is not immediately available. An engineer arrives. The engineer, attempting to help, opens the wrong valve. Seawater under pressure floods through the open valve. The water enters the submarine at approximately 60 meters depth. The pressure is approximately 6 atmospheres. The water flows at high volume through piping that leads directly to the submarine's battery compartment. Within seconds, seawater is spraying onto the electric batteries located beneath the toilet compartment. The Type 7C submarine used lead-acid batteries for submerged propulsion. The batteries contained sulfuric acid. When seawater mixed with sulfuric acid, the chemical reaction produced chlorine gas. The gas is toxic. Exposure causes respiratory damage, unconsciousness, death. The crew has approximately minutes before the concentration becomes lethal. At 1412 hours, chlorine gas begins filling the submarine. The smell is immediate and unmistakable. Crew in the forward compartments detect it first. The alarm is raised. Kapitänleutnant Schlitt assesses the situation. The gas is spreading. The batteries are contaminated. The electrical system is failing. The submarine is flooding. He has limited options. He orders emergency surface. U-1206 blows ballast tanks and rises rapidly. She breaches the surface at approximately 1415 hours, less than 5 minutes after the toilet malfunction began. The crew evacuates onto the deck. The chlorine gas is now concentrated enough that remaining below is fatal. Some crew are already affected, coughing, struggling to breathe. On the surface, U-1206 is in British-controlled waters, 8 miles from the Scottish coast. Visibility is good. The submarine is clearly visible from shore. British forces will respond quickly. Schlitt understands this. But the alternative is dying from chlorine gas exposure. He had no choice but surface. At 1420 hours, British aircraft spot the submarine. The location is reported. Royal Navy patrol boats and aircraft are dispatched. The submarine is disabled, flooding, contaminated with gas. She cannot dive. She cannot fight. Schlitt makes the only decision available. He orders the crew to abandon ship. He sets scuttling charges. U-1206 will be destroyed to prevent capture. The crew evacuates into dinghies. The scuttling charges detonate at approximately 1430 hours. U-1206 sinks in approximately 70 meters of water. The entire sequence from toilet malfunction to sinking took approximately 20 minutes. 4 crew members died, mostly from chlorine gas exposure. The rest, 46 men, were rescued by British forces and became prisoners of war. This is how U-1206 was sunk by her own toilet, not by depth charges, not by aircraft attack, not by enemy action of any kind, by a plumbing error, a captain who did not understand his own toilet system, an engineer who opened the wrong valve, and a chain of consequences that led from bathroom to battery compartment to chlorine gas to surface to scuttle to sinking. The story became infamous. The submarine destroyed by a toilet. The U-boat sunk by human waste and seawater. The tale was repeated for decades, sometimes as humor, sometimes as cautionary lesson, always as example of how small mistakes can have catastrophic consequences. To understand how this happened, you need to understand both German submarine toilet systems and the desperation of U-boat operations in April 1945. The Type 7C submarine was Germany's standard submarine design. Approximately 700 were built during the war. They displaced 640-ton surface, 769 tons submerged. Length was 67.1 meters. Crew was 44 officers and men. The boats were cramped, uncomfortable, and dangerous even without equipment malfunctions. The toilet system was complex by necessity. Submarines operating submerged cannot simply discharge waste overboard. The external water pressure at depth prevents normal discharge. Early submarines had chemical toilets or holding tanks. These were inadequate for patrols lasting weeks. The smell was intolerable. The capacity was insufficient. German engineers developed a pressurized discharge system. The toilet waste went into a chamber that could be pressurized to exceed external water pressure. Once pressurized, a valve opened to discharge the waste overboard. The system worked but required careful operation. Multiple valves had to be operated in specific sequence. Mistakes could cause backflow of seawater into the submarine. The procedure was complicated enough that German submarines assigned specific crew members as toilet specialists. These men were trained in the operation of the system. They understood the valve sequences. They knew what to do if something went wrong. Other crew were discouraged from operating the system without supervision. The risk of error was significant. But Kapitän Lieutenant Schlitt was the captain. He presumably felt that asking for help to use the toilet was beneath his dignity. Or perhaps he believed he understood the system adequately. Or perhaps the toilet specialist was unavailable and Schlitt needed to use the facility immediately. The specific motivation is unknown. What is documented is that Schlitt attempted to operate the system himself and made an error. The exact nature of the error is unclear from available records. The most likely explanation is that he opened the wrong valve in wrong sequence. This would have allowed high-pressure seawater to flow backward through the system. The water would have entered the submarine through piping intended for waste discharge. When Schlitt realized something was wrong, he called for help. An engineer responded. The engineer, not the toilet specialist, attempted to correct the problem. He opened what he thought was the correct valve. It was not. The valve he opened increased the flow of seawater instead of stopping it. This second error was critical. Now seawater was flowing at high volume into the submarine. The water was entering near the toilet in the forward compartment. But the piping led down through the deck into the battery compartment below. The design was intended to manage any minor leaks or drips from the toilet system. It was not designed to handle high-volume flooding. The battery compartment contained approximately 120 lead-acid battery cells. These batteries provided electrical power when the submarine was submerged. Each cell contained sulfuric acid and lead plates. The batteries were essential for submerged operations. They were also extremely dangerous if damaged or contaminated. Seawater spraying onto the batteries created immediate chemical reaction. Sulfuric acid plus seawater produces hydrogen and chlorine gas. Both gases are toxic. Chlorine gas specifically is heavier than air, highly toxic, and was used as a chemical weapon in World War I. The reaction was rapid. Gas production was substantial. The concentration in the confined submarine was quickly lethal. The crew recognized the gas immediately. Chlorine has a distinctive smell, pungent and choking. Even small concentrations cause respiratory irritation. The concentrations developing in U-1206 were far beyond small. Within minutes, crew in the forward compartments were coughing, eyes watering, struggling to breathe. Schlitt faced a crisis. The submarine was flooding. The batteries were contaminated. Chlorine gas was spreading. The electrical system was failing. Remaining submerged meant death from gas exposure. The only option was emergency surface. But surfacing in daylight in British-controlled waters meant near-certain capture. Schlitt chose survival over capture. He ordered emergency blow. The submarine rose rapidly. The compressed air forced water from ballast tanks. U-1206 breached the surface violently. The crew scrambled onto deck. Some were already severely affected by gas exposure. They were helped up by crew from aft compartments who had less exposure. On the surface, Schlitt assessed his situation. The submarine was disabled. Flooding continued. The batteries were destroyed. Chlorine gas filled the forward compartments. The boat could not dive. British forces would arrive soon. Fighting was impossible. The crew was affected by gas. Some seriously. The only option was abandon ship and scuttle. The decision was sound given the circumstances, but it meant losing the submarine. U-1206 was new, commissioned only weeks earlier. She had conducted minimal operations. She was being lost not to enemy action, but to operator error. The loss was humiliating. The cause was absurd, but the necessity was absolute. The scuttling charges were set. The crew evacuated to dinghies. British patrol aircraft arrived at approximately 1425 hours. They circled but did not attack. The submarine was clearly disabled. Crew abandoning. At 1430 hours, The charges detonated. U-1206 sank stern first. The bow remained visible for approximately 2 minutes before disappearing beneath the surface. British patrol boats arrived at approximately 1445 hours. They rescued the crew from dinghies. 4 men were missing, presumed dead from chlorine gas exposure or drowning during evacuation. The rest, 46 including Captain Lieutenant Schlitt, were taken prisoner. The war for them was over. For Schlitt, the humiliation was beginning. The British interrogated the crew. The story of the toilet malfunction emerged. The interrogators found it difficult to believe. A submarine sunk by a toilet. The crew insisted it was true. Schlitt confirmed the account. The sequence of events was documented. The British intelligence reports noted the incident as an unusual example of equipment failure contributing to U-boat loss. After the war, the story became known. Schlitt spoke about it occasionally. He was defensive. He insisted the system was poorly designed. The procedures were too complex. Anyone could have made the same mistake. This was partly true. The system was complex, but the procedures existed specifically because the system was complex. Ignoring those procedures caused the disaster. The crew who survived had mixed feelings. Some were angry at Schlitt for his mistake. Others were relieved they survived. A few found humor in the situation. They had survived the war. The manner of their survival was embarrassing, but they were alive. That was what mattered. German naval historians documented the loss as an example of how technical failures could destroy submarines. The toilet incident was included in analyses of U-boat losses, but it was also treated as an anomaly. Most U-boats were lost to enemy action, depth charges, aircraft attacks, mines. U-1206 was almost unique in being lost to her own plumbing. The technical investigation after the war identified the design flaw. The toilet discharge system should not have piping that led directly to the battery compartment. Any leak or malfunction risked exactly what happened to U-1206. The design was changed in later submarines, but by April 1945, most German submarine construction had ceased. The lesson was learned too late to matter. The broader context was that U-boat operations in April 1945 were desperate. Germany was losing the war. The submarine fleet was being destroyed faster than boats could be built. Most patrols ended in loss. Experienced crews were dead or captured. New boats like U-1206 were crewed by men with minimal training. Captain Lieutenant Schlitt had limited experience. Many of his crew were on their first patrol. These conditions contributed to the disaster. An experienced captain would have known to call the toilet specialist. An experienced engineer would have known which valve was correct. The mistakes that sank U-1206 were partly inexperience. The crew was competent but not expert. The difference was critical. The strategic impact was nil. Losing one submarine in April 1945 changed nothing. Germany had already lost the Battle of the Atlantic. The U-boat fleet was defeated. One more boat lost, regardless of how, was irrelevant. The war would end in 3 weeks. U-1206 would have achieved nothing even if she had survived. But the story mattered for different reasons. It demonstrated how complex systems can fail in unexpected ways. The toilet system was designed to solve a problem: waste disposal at depth. The solution created a new problem: risk of flooding the batteries. The risk was manageable with proper procedures, but procedures require training and discipline. When those were absent, the system became lethal. The story also demonstrated the importance of understanding your equipment. Schlitt was the captain. He commanded the submarine, but he did not fully understand one of its basic systems. This ignorance was dangerous when he needed to use the toilet. His incomplete knowledge combined with bad luck to destroy his boat. Modern submarine designs eliminated this specific vulnerability. Toilet systems were redesigned to prevent seawater backflow into critical compartments. Battery compartments were sealed more effectively. Training emphasized proper operation of all systems. The U-1206 incident became a case study in what not to do, but the fundamental lesson remained applicable beyond submarines. Complex systems require proper operation. Mistakes have consequences. In confined spaces, small errors can escalate rapidly. U-1206 went from operational submarine to sinking wreck in 20 minutes because someone opened the wrong valve at the wrong time. Survivors of U-1206 lived with the story for decades. Some refused to discuss it. The humiliation was too great. Others spoke about it matter-of-factly. It was an accident. Accidents happen. They survived. That was what mattered. A few even found it darkly funny. Of all the ways to lose a submarine, A toilet malfunction was perhaps the most absurd. Kapitan Lieutenant Schlitt lived until 1965. He rarely spoke about U-1206. When he did, he emphasized the design flaws. The system was too complicated. The training was inadequate. The war was lost. The submarine would have been destroyed eventually, regardless. The toilet incident simply determined the timing and method. This self-justification was understandable but incomplete. The system was complicated, but procedures existed to manage that complexity. Schlitt bypassed those procedures. The result was disaster. Accepting responsibility would have been more honest, but Schlitt never fully did. He defended himself until his death. The wreck of U-1206 remains on the seafloor approximately 8 miles off Peterhead, Scotland. The depth is approximately 70 meters. The wreck has been visited by divers. Photographs show the submarine largely intact. Corrosion has progressed, but the structure remains recognizable. The toilet that caused the disaster is presumably still there, rusted and buried in sediment. The wreck is a maritime grave. 4 men died with the submarine. Their bodies were never recovered. The site is protected. Salvage is prohibited. The submarine remains where she sank. Memorial to a disaster caused by a bathroom fixture. The story is often told as humor. The submarine sunk by a toilet. The image is amusing. Advanced military technology defeated by plumbing. But the humor obscures the tragedy. 4 men died. 46 were captured. The submarine was lost. The cause was absurd, but the consequences were real. The lesson is serious. Small mistakes can have catastrophic results. Complex systems require proper procedures. Training matters. Experience matters. Discipline matters. U-1206 was destroyed because these things were absent at a critical moment. This is the complete story. Not just the toilet malfunction, but the context, the desperation, the inexperience, the chain of errors, the consequences. A captain who did not know his toilet system. An engineer who opened the wrong valve. Seawater flooding batteries. Chlorine gas spreading. Emergency surface. British waters. Scuttling. Sinking. 4 dead. 46 captured. The submarine lost. All because someone needed to use the bathroom and did not follow proper procedures. All because a captain thought he understood a system he did not. All because an engineer tried to help and made things worse. 1206. Commissioned March 1945. Lost April 1945. Operational lifespan approximately 6 weeks. Cause of loss. Toilet malfunction. Casualties. 4 dead. 46 captured. Strategic impact. None. Historical significance. Example of how complex systems fail when procedures are ignored. The submarine sunk by a toilet. The U-boat destroyed by plumbing. The vessel lost because someone flushed wrong. The story sounds like fiction. It is documented fact. The toilet system was complex. The captain made a mistake. The engineer made things worse. The batteries were flooded. The gas was deadly. The submarine surfaced. The British captured them. The boat was scuttled. The war ended 3 weeks later. Simple causation. Clear lesson. Absurd details. Real consequences. That is U-1206. That is why the story matters. Not because it is funny. Because it demonstrates how small errors escalate into disasters when systems are complex and procedures are ignored. The toilet was flushed wrong. The submarine sank. 4 men died. That is the truth. Strange. Tragic. Preventable. 1206. Lost to her own plumbing. Sunk by a toilet. Destroyed by operator error. Remembered as cautionary tale about complexity, procedures, and consequences. The submarine that went to the bottom because someone could not operate a bathroom fixture correctly. The vessel destroyed by the most mundane failure imaginable. The U-boat whose legacy is humiliation rather than heroism. That is U-1206. That is her story. Absurd. Tragic. True. The toilet malfunctioned. The submarine sank. The crew was captured. The war ended. The lesson remained. Complex systems require proper operation. Mistakes have consequences. Pride precedes disaster. Small errors cascade into catastrophe. U-1206 proved all of these. She paid with her existence. 4 men paid with their lives. 46 paid with their freedom. All because a toilet was flushed incorrectly. All because procedures were ignored. All because complexity defeated competence. That is the story. Complete. Absurd. Cautionary. True. The submarine sunk by a toilet. The lesson learned through disaster. The tale that seems impossible but is documented fact. 1206. Commissioned in hope. Lost in humiliation. Remembered in disbelief. The toilet was flushed. The submarine sank. That is all. That is enough. The most absurd loss of the U-boat war. The disaster caused by bathroom fixtures. The vessel destroyed by her own plumbing. 1206. The submarine that proved even modern weapons can be defeated by ancient necessities. The boat that lost to biology and chemistry and poor procedure, sunk by a toilet, lost to plumbing. Destroyed by mistakes, remembered forever. That is U-1206. That is her legacy. Strange. Embarrassing. Unforgettable. The toilet malfunctioned. The submarine died. 4 men died with her. 46 survived to tell the tale that no one quite believed but everyone remembered. The U-boat sunk by her own toilet. The story that sounds like fiction but is fact. The disaster that proved complexity requires competence. That is enough. That is the story. That is U-1206. Sunk by a toilet. Lost to a flush. Destroyed by plumbing. Remembered in disbelief. The end came from the bathroom. Strange but true, absurd but real. Tragic despite the humor. 1206. The submarine that proves sometimes truth is stranger than fiction and more tragic than farce. The toilet was flushed wrong. The submarine sank. That is all you need to know. The rest is consequences.